right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Control+M Presents. We're so glad that you joined us, and we're really grateful to be starting this program up again. It's been a really busy 2024 for us already. We've taken 4 companies live so far this year, and we have another one next week. And being busy does make doing these presentations regularly a bit challenging, so we went to work to remedy that by bringing on a gentleman named Michael Farrow. Michael recently joined us in December as our Plex practice director, and part of his job was to get us back on track for doing these presentations. So thanks, Michael, for whipping us all up into shape. Michael's email is michael@controlm.solution. Remember, no.net, no.com, just solution. So email Michael if you have any feedback for us. And thanks again, Michael. We're sure glad to have you aboard.
Thank you.
And as a reminder to all attendees, we are recording this session, so you're all on mute. So when question time comes around at the end of the presentation, you're going to need to remember to unmute yourselves. Okay, on to today's topic. For those of you who've been in the Plex community a long time, you're going to recognize the name of today's speaker. He's been a very involved fixture in the Plex community for a few years. Welcome, Albie Bell. Albie joined us late last year, and he's going to be spending some time today talking about program management. Now, this module is really big and very powerful. In fact, it's too big for just one session. So today he's going to be focusing on a smaller subset of what is available. And then we're going to do an additional follow-up session on the additional functionality. So Albie, without any further delay, take it away.
Thanks, Patty, and thanks, Michael, for making me not the new guy anymore. As Patty said, I recently joined Control+M in October of 2023. Prior to that, I was spent 8 years as operations and manufacturing engineering manager, program manager, and Plex champion for a tier 1 and 2 automotive supplier that used Plex. In 2018, we went live with Plex, and probably the last ever classic implementation that was done. And I led that team to implement Plex, and at the same time was on the team that was getting the company certified in 16949. After we launched Plex, I spent most of my time as a program manager, and probably took maybe a dozen programs from award all the way through launch. And it's this experience that really sort of cemented my appreciation for the program management module, and the functions that it has to allow you to sort of get rid of that old school binder that has the Gantt chart that folds out in like 15 different pages. If you had tractor feed paper, it would be better because then you could get the whole thing in one thing, but this allows you to really get into the 21st century with that. Good thing about the program management module, you can use it completely standalone from anything else in Plex. So if you wanted to get an early win, you could do that before going live. You don't need parts setup, you don't need process routings, things like that. So you could theoretically use it as managing your go live if you wanted to. A couple of things that I want to sort of point out for you as I go through this. If I say PM, I'm going to mean program management. If you're looking for maintenance, there's already been a Control+M Presents session on that. It was the 8th session 3 years ago, and it's up on the YouTube channel. You can check it out along with all of the other content that is there. If I say iteration or phase, those are interchangeable in terminology. Iteration was the classic way of classifying that, and phase is the UX term, but there's a number of spots where iteration still shows up in Plex. So let's take a quick look at the agenda, and we're going to walk through. So what do I mean by program management on a super high level? We'll get into the summary of what the offering is for program management in Plex. And as Patty was saying, there's a ton there, and I'm going to highlight on a couple of things. But if you've got questions on specific other parts, certainly reach out and ask us. We're happy to help. We'll look at sort of the 3 levels of program and project management inside of Plex. We're only going to take a deep dive into the checklist system. It's actually technically a part of the quality system, but it is totally intertwined all over the place in program management. We'll stop briefly at issue manager and meeting minutes. Well, then we'll dump it all together and dive into Plex to see how it works and some of those features that are there. And of course, we'll wrap up with questions and then what's next in the Control+M Presents series coming next. So when I'm talking about program management, it's that like balancing act of timing and resources, cost, deliverables, and tasks that your customer wants you to deliver, or internally you want to deliver to the market. So think about it a little bit like Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze, whichever version you choose to navigate with. It gives you a set of directions to follow, some timing of how long it's going to take to get there, and the distance, sort of perceived effort. Program management is very much the same way, so that you have a defined result. Because if you don't, and you just sort of like, hey, I'm going to drive there and I think I'm going to know where I'm going to go, chances are you may end up down the wrong road, or you may get into some traffic, things like that. Having a clear methodology will help, won't guarantee, but it'll help you avoid some of those pitfalls, because certainly things happen all the time to do that. So if we sort of start with that fundamental and think about how Plex is going to provide tools to help you with timing and tasks, some costs, the resources, some people to do what your customer expects, that is what we're going to really talk about today. And as Patty said, sort of a high level, because there's a lot there. And if you got questions, certainly reach out and ask. We're happy to help. So if we look at the program management menu in that unified structure, so we're all speaking the exact same language as long as we're looking at UX today. We're going to really look at some of those green boxes today, and the yellow one. It's for meeting minutes. It's yellow because it's not in the program management menu. I snipped it out of the communications menu and brought it in for this conversation today. So we're going to look at program management is a program management module, and it's a good summary of the programs that your company might have open. And when I think about programs, parts of the business that you are developing, maybe it's a specific product, maybe it's an R&D product, but it's something that your company is wanting to manage from inception all the way to celebratory party at the end of being successful. The issue management module is a single list of open issues that you can use across so many aspects of your business, including the program. And then phases is the really depth of where a lot of information comes together, similar to that 3-ring binder that's probably sitting on a shelf for some programs from 10 or 15 years ago at your company. All of these other things, explore around, take a look at them. They've been around in the Plex manufacturing cloud for a long time. Some of it was customer funded development way back in the day. Some of it has been UX transition, but a lot of the functionality are really cool in there, and take a look and explore around. So if we look then at the 3 levels of program management in Plex, and they are purely organizational, that brings together data that exists inside of Plex into a common location. So at the highest level is the customer program, and think about it as things that your customer is wanting you to make. In the automotive realm, think about it as an entire car, right? It might be the EV Blazer, or maybe it's a GMT 900 if we're going way back, right? It's the whole vehicle. And with that, it will come with what your customer thinks they're going to make in terms of volume, where you're going to deliver that part, which customer it is asking you to make something for it. Or if you're in the food and bev side of things, maybe it's an entire product line. Maybe it's barbecue products, and you want a couple of barbecue sauces and some dry rubs and maybe some butcher paper that's branded with this line of barbecue. But your customer is asking you to do all of these things, and they see it as one big project. That's the top level. The second level is program, and in the classic terminology was internal program, but program works just the same, and you can have multiple programs to one customer program, and we're going to take a look at that in some of my examples that I have. But if you have a brake rotor and a part of your part that they want you to produce for them, and then a sunroof, that is two distinct set of activities, probably two different distinct set of resources that you're going to use, timing, things like that, that you need to keep separate in your company's methodology of how you want to do that. So you can have a multiple to one relationship there. And then the base level is the phase or iteration. And it is really that life cycle of your program development. And it helps keep track of tons of pieces of information that might include part numbers, customer purchase orders, engineering change requests, the team that is a part of this project, the timing, and the tasks that you have to do, or specifically the checklist of steps that you might have to do. And inside of Plex, there is a module, and maybe you guys have already come across it. It is the checklist module, and it actually exists inside of the quality module. And if you're looking at your menus right now, it's in the APQP menu, and it has a couple of parts. It has a checklist, which is the actual list that you're working through, and it has a template. So that concept is really analogous to the grocery list that my mom used to have, and probably totally still has, but she's got 3 or 4 more templates of it. She shopped at Meijer, and she knew the layout of the store, and we as kids and my dad were responsible for putting the items that we wanted to have purchased in the section of the store where it was go. So meats were in one thing, cereal, paper goods. The list was laid out. And after we put all the groceries away, you'd reach into the cabinet and get into a stack of paper of the template of the grocery list and put it back onto the refrigerator so you'd start using it. In Plex, it's very much the same way. You have a starting point for your tasks that you want to do in your company. So taking a look at how it's organized, there are sections inside of a template that have different sets of questions inside of them. So for example, you could have a section that includes all of your customers' milestones. When's the start of production? When do they want, if you're in the automotive realm, the PPAP submitted and approved? When do they want tooling? You can build all of that together, and it's set up in a header. So I'm dancing around here. A list of sections with questions that are associated with them. And for example, Amber's got an assignment of design some tools for the tooling development section with a specific due date of the 17th. And not to worry, she's completed her work, and the example we'll see in Plex, she was done on the 17th as required. Neat thing about questions, you can attach evidence, you can attach notes to keep track of things along the way. So that is the checklist and template. Think of it a little bit like the arrangement of a part to a job. A part's going to have a BOM, a routing, right? And then when you create your job for that part, it has its own BOM and process routing. This is the same way. It is the starting point and then the actualization of your checklist. So then we can jump into the other piece that we're going to talk about briefly. There's two more before we're going to dive into Plex. The issue manager is a single list of issues for your PCN, and you can sort them in a number of different categories. The program, why we're talking about it today, or project or phase, a type. We use this internally as we're helping customers launch Plex and some of those items that we need to keep track of, who's responsible for them, when do they need to be done, and the status that that item exists. Fairly simple module, but it is super helpful for looking at things. And these issues will show up on the landing page when you log into that activities that you've got to do. Those will show up there. The other brief one is meeting minutes. It is a rich text editor that you can capture attendees, minutes, attachments. I use this all the time in my past. I would keep track of who was at the meeting, and then I would attach the open issues list that we used to go through that that topic and send those out. The attachments don't email, but they are, you can get to a link from the email that gets sent out. One bit of caution for everybody: if you have long meetings that are over 90 minutes, the log out timing could catch you up and lose your notes when you go to save at the bottom, and you've logged out after 90 minutes. That sort of is a bit of a bummer if you're taking notes directly in there. There is a Exchange idea that I wrote 3 years ago that's 8th of all time. It's called the login timeout warning. If you're susceptible to a 90-minute thing and your company is interested in that, I know some of you have already voted on that from a long time ago, but maybe keeping a like the production statuses menu or a screen open on another spot can keep you out of trouble. But definitely learned that lesson the hard way a couple of times. So let's go roll the dice with Plex and make sure it's working. So we're going to take a look as we jump into Plex here in a moment. We're going to take a look at a checklist template in greater detail than what was on my slide. We're going to look at the program management menu and what is there in really those three parts. And then the 3 levels we'll look at, and then we'll add a checklist to a phase and compare and contrast, adding that to the standalone checklist that we're going to take a look at. So, go into Plex. There we go. All right, so I have navigated to the program management module already. So in the 3-bar stack, inside of products and programs, there's program management, and we're currently looking at program management. And this is really that second level of programs. So it's a crossroads of a lot of things. So the customer program is linked to a customer. So in this case, A5 Gizmos R Us is my customer for the next gen gizmo, and that is their program that they have, and you can take a look into that. And it has some of those base things that you want, some information there, status, some program timing, including the standard start of production, end of production, end of service. It has what the customer thinks they're gonna support or sell in there. You can keep track of some of those volumes in that. I put in, I think that was based upon Mr. Fibonacci's methodology. There is how I picked those. And then which markets you're going to, who's the program champion for your company, and then which plants are going to take that product. So if you've got a customer, big tier 1, and they've got 15 plants around the country and another 72 around the world, you could pick the specific one that program will get associated with. So volume and timing based upon what the customer thinks. Come on, Plex, let's go back. Working without a net, there we go. Okay, and then you could have, so this is one customer program, and then inside of that, you could have two internal programs, where you have the Gizmo divider program and the multiplier program. And that has some summary level information, pulls in some customer program information, when your company started. You can associate meetings and issues with that, but it's a little bit lighter than where we're going to go on the program phase coming up. So you can have a checklist associated here as well. You can pick the template that you want to use, and it will pull that in. If you didn't want to go to the step of looking at the iteration. Couple ways that you could do an iteration, and this is sort of an example of the two. You could have an iteration for each phase of your program as your company's wants. So you could think about having a phase per program related gate. If your company has to, present to the vice president that yes, we're on track and we've done all of these standardized steps to get through the gate and we're ready for you to bless it or send us back and redo a whole bunch of stuff, you could be set up in that way. These could be set up to do that, and you could keep track of each one of them individually. Or, and the way that I use more often than not, actually, it was having one phase with a checklist that had the various portions about it. In my past company, we actually used both situations where you had a phase more for each of the development sides, R&D wise, and then a production side using here. So this is the one phase, and then the status controls that. So if we go into the iteration, we will see a lot of helpful information, a lot of those stones that we looked at in one of the early slides that you've got to balance and manage throughout your project. So here's the timing from the customer, the internal program, and you can see there's not a whole lot there because the bulk of the functionality really is in the phase. And you can sort of see here the iteration detail and iteration. There's some things that didn't get switched from iteration to phase. If you know that, it's not a big deal. Some classification, product phase, if you're pre-production, service, again, some setup tables that you can play around with, which phase you want called out, a type, if you've got 15 different programs that all have different things, a lot of information that you can sort of start classifying in there. You can link meetings to this. So this particular meeting is exactly what this presentation is right now. And I had one earlier to help configure the setup tables for this presentation as examples. Didn't have any issues tied into it, but certainly you could, and then you could flick into those issues as you go along. If there's some numbers that your customer wants to build. So then these sections, a lot of them are configurable if you want to have them displayed or not. There's lots of settings, setup tables behind the scenes to control this. Fairly flexible. Iteration status, it could be self-selected, but also the iteration is one of the integrated workflows that you can use in the workflow module to control this status. So if you had a company that wanted the vice president of program management to approve the gate and then allow you to go into the next gate, you could do that really well with the workflow. These dates are super helpful because they will help you as you bring in this task list. It'll create the timing for your program. One thing that I forgot to mention in the template, but we'll take a look at here in a second, is that your questions can have predecessors, and then you can cascade that template timing all the way throughout the item, or out throughout your program. We will get to adding this in a second. Attributes, another spot where you can configure this to be what you want. Risk, you could have it be some results that you know. If you have I know in IATF, there's a requirement that you do a risk evaluation on your program. You could use this and create attributes for each section that you wanted to review risk if you wanted to, or if it was part specific. Outside diameter, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Sounds good. Or you could just free text, whatever you want. That part, super flexible. Definitely worth taking a look at if you have some areas that you need to sort of customize inside of the module. Back up to the top of the right column here. The people, you can associate a team or individual members. The individual members is really the powerful side. And each one of these 6 people is inside a specific team that is associated with a question. These people then will get assigned into a particular question. You can pull in parts. So we will add all the way at the bottom of this list. Link parts, 85. Cool test part gizmo seems about right for this program. And then you can start navigating to the various portions of that part. This is the exact submenu from the part module or items if you're in the food and bev side of the world. To make some quick navigation back and forth. Engineering change requests can get linked. This design section is pretty configurable with some setup tables, particularly this table here, just so that you could have, all right, this program does want a 8.5 by 11 drawing, put it on paper, right? So it's a little bit archaic with where the base setup tables were configured, but you can use that for much of what you want. Accounting jobs can be linked into the iteration, and some quote information, jobs. These are all sections that you can turn on and turn off as you need. So this action bar, when I looked at it on my 22-inch wide monitor in landscape mode, still had 3 items that were in this more section. So it's a huge action bar with lots of things that sort of cross into the area. We're going to take a quick jaunt out into the quality menu to look at the checklist and the checklist template. We're going to start with the template. Get the wide open search and take a look at the A5 CMP full program template. And it has some configuration stuff at the sort of boilerplate header side of it for what types of information you want to track and contain. As a type, this will help it show up in the right portions of Plex, and you can have other standard templates that show up elsewhere inside of things, right? There's like lots of spots that this shows up, super helpful, but the bulk of it comes down into the sections. And inside of these sections, there's 2 major components to it. There's questions, and then there's review, whether that is validation, like management review, sign off that you have met the requirements there. So we'll open up a template section, and you can set some color. You can make it a reusable section. This is really cool because you can say, this list of things I might want to use on a different template elsewhere, or when I'm actually using the checklist, maybe I want to duplicate one of these sections again because I didn't pass gate 1 and I've got to do it again. You could add a second section of the same gate 1 template, have records of not passing the first time and then passing a second time. Inside of the question itself, you can then set what characteristics you want. Is it going to get assigned to an individual? Do you want to have attachments showing up there? And do you want to lock down those attachments after they're attached? A lot of not a lot of configuration, but some tools to make it work for your company. And then here, this assignment team to sales is one of those teams that were configured with people there, and time units, 3 days for doing this thing first. I'm going to go back and open up a second or third question and then take a look at the prerequisites. This is how you start building sort of that cascade of timing in the iteration. So these two do second items are following after this do this first step. You could also then have it linked across other sections in your template. Doesn't have to be organized by section based upon time, but you could also organize it by responsible departments. Could be, so maybe you had one section for design, purchasing, program management, finance, organize that way. Whatever organizational methodology you want to employ in the checklist, you can do that. And then you can associate a given review to have buy off on the section itself. So that's the template. And now let's go take a look at the actual checklist when it's created. So I have this one here that I've already made, and you can look at it in a number of different ways. You can look at only the section and the questions that are assigned there. And notice how this one doesn't have any assignments and doesn't have any time. That'll be key here in a second. Or you could look at the whole list all in one checklist to look at. I've run numerous sort of gate review meetings with this methodology or this open. Will caution you, don't have multiple people in the checklist at the same time. If somebody was late turning in their homework, if you will, and they're feverishly trying to finish down here and say that they've done something, they hit apply, but you've been going through and checking off if people have done certain activities all the way through. They might just overwrite what you've done and wipe that out. So one person at a time, and you'll be much happier with this. All right, so let's go back and do a quick add checklist in a standalone. So you can get to these checklists independent of whether they are in a program phase or an iteration. So I'm going to pick the template that I want to use, this full program, and you can put some additional information in there. You're going to hit apply, and it's going to bring all of those questions and all of those items in to that. If we take a look at that, somebody's then has to go through and say, well, who in the sales team is going to take this? Patty can. You got to go through all that. It might take a fair bit of time. The clever way to do it, if you were using a checklist and a program iteration, program phase, you can link your checklist template directly here. Same exact template. We have timing defined for what the program and the customer needs are. And we have team members assigned to the iteration, to the program here. And it's already brought in the critical path step. These are ones that maybe you've deemed a little bit more important, but when I hit apply, we're going to see something really cool happen. Based upon the timing of precedence and the number of days and things like that, Plex then has gone and created the planned finish dates for each of these items that are on the critical path, in addition to coming into the full task list. Plex has gone and created timing. Doesn't have any assigned in this first section, but all of these other items, it went through and cascaded the timing and picked who was responsible. So you're not coming through here and spending, in this checklist, maybe it's not going to take it, but 3, 4, 5 minutes. Timing's probably going to take a little bit longer. But if you've got a big program that has 15, 20 steps in each section, and there's lots of complicated intertwining of timing, this just saved you a whole lot of effort. Certainly you can go change and have it cascade again as things update and goes along, but this is a huge time saver. I do need to give a little bit of credit to Jennifer McIntosh back in the day for showing me this. It is probably one of the coolest things that's possible inside of the iteration module or the phase module when you link checklists and iterations together, you get automatically created timing and assignments to do that. So that is a little bit of detail on the overall side of the program management module. If there are any questions that have rolled in at this point, we're going to switch back to the slide deck, and I am ready for questions officially. Is there anything out there that has rolled in thus far?
Hey everybody, just a reminder, you are on mute, so you may have to unmute yourself to be able to ask a question, but has anyone got any questions for Albie? Sorry, my printer just decided to get real noisy there, everybody.
I do.
Hi. I have a question. This is Kathy Cunningham. In the program management module, is there a Gantt chart that shows the timing?
Let's go back to that because I missed that big one for sure. So if you click on time, hopefully I'm still sharing, right? If you click on timeline right here, you will get a Gantt chart. Now, it's not like Microsoft Projects beautiful, but you definitely have that ability, and these times will update, particularly if you start using the actual start and actual finish. Those will populate along the way, and you can do that as well.
And that comes off, and that comes from the critical path that was included.
So this has all of the questions in it for each of the that section for that.
Gotcha. Is there a way to decide which questions you're going to, what you want to spend on this? Is there any filtering?
I know that there is a show on customer view part that I'd have to go and do some testing with. If we pull one of those off, does it then not print on the Gantt chart? There's a couple of spots where you can look at your Gantt chart. You certainly can look at it through the program management module, but you can also look at it inside of the checklist itself. And they look a little bit different, but there's possibility perhaps with some testing there.
Okay, thank you.
There used to be a critical path view. Is that still available?
Albie, that might be one that we
might be.
may need to look up too. It's okay if we do.
Yep, I think so. Certainly the critical path side shows up in the iteration. These are only the ones that get checked on the question itself are going to show up here. Yeah, I'm taking a note. Who asked that question, if I could again?
That's a great question too. I'll
Yeah,
be
for
I'll be
sure.
interested in hearing that one. Bill, did you have a question?
Yes, I have three questions. A showstopper for us was meeting minutes. Sometimes we have sensitive information we don't want everybody being able to see. We haven't looked at this since Classic, and that was kind of a showstopper. So is there a way to limit access to just those people on a project basis?
So I know there's some security around who can answer questions, who can update questions and things like that. And hopefully you guys are not hearing the slow train that's going through my backyard right now. That can be controlled, but based upon visibility of sections and things like that, I'll need to do some research there.
So I'll look myself. Does it make sense to use this, Albie, for internal programs like a UX rollout where maybe our company HK would be the so-called customer because this is customer based? This is kind of a good thing.
Albie, if you don't mind, I'd like to dive in on that one. Bill,
Yeah, go
we
for it.
use checklists extensively at Control+M for new onboarding, for new clients, whether it's a full implementation or an optimization. So I would really urge you to do it for a UX transition. You can use checklists for almost any type of project that you have, and even if it's not a program.
And you had a few acronyms in one of the slides. I guess SOP is standard operating procedure. What is EOP and EOS?
In this case, SOP was start of production, end of production was EOP, and then EOS was end of service. So if you've got 15-year requirement after you finish up your program, that would be that date.
Cool.
Any other questions for Albie? All right, Albie, let's show the next slide. We've got some exciting announcements coming up. All right. So thanks, Albie, for that great presentation. I know that people are going to be looking forward for those remaining features. I wanted to take a few seconds to invite everybody to, everyone on this call, especially the people in Wisconsin or Chicagoland areas, to a show that we're having at the Rockwell Tower in Milwaukee. I'll put the link in the chat right now. It's an opportunity for you to talk about OEE, to meet some folks at Rockwell, catch up with me if it's been a while since we've seen you, and get an opportunity to go to the clocktail hour at the top of the clock tower. So if you want to learn about that, please join us. The link is in the chat right now to sign up. So next slide, Albie. Our next session is going to be held in 2 weeks when Justina Walker will be presenting the automatic supplier PO releases functionality in MRP. It's a great function that's gained quite a bit of traction in the past few years. Hopefully it'll be useful for you. Can't wait to show it to you and maybe make your job a little bit easier. So if you're interested in this, let Jill know and make sure that you reserve her or email her with any ideas that you have as well. What I wanted to show on the last slide for today is all the topics that Michael is working on organizing right now that will be scheduled between now and about May. So if any of these are interesting to you, Make sure that you email Jill. We will be sending out invites once we have the dates confirmed. We'll continue to send them out. I apologize for them going out so late this time. I had a go live I was working on, and it's Michael's job to make sure I send out the invites on time. Now, so hopefully we should get a little better on that. I will be processing and uploading this video to our YouTube channel this afternoon, so please check it out. There are over 60 videos of training content available to you, no obligation, no charge. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up or subscribe and spread the word. Again, there's no obligation, and they're available to everybody in the Plex community. And a big thank you to all of you who mentioned our YouTube channel in the Plex community when Blake was asking what your favorite podcast was. So thanks for those thumbs up. We appreciate it all, and most of all, we appreciate you. So go out and make it a good day. Thanks, Albie. Thanks everyone for joining us.